I never thought a simple day would mark the beginning of something that would change my life forever. My daughter and I were working on her rental house. Nothing unusual, just a bit of labor. Both of us felt strangely exhausted, as if the weight of our bodies had doubled in a matter of minutes. We brushed it off, told ourselves maybe we had caught the flu, and went home. I didn't realize at the time that this was the last ordinary day I would remember for a very long while. At home, the exhaustion deepened. Dinner was cooking, the air filled with the smell of sauce and spices, but I couldn't smell or taste anything. My body felt heavy, drained, like I was slipping into a fog I couldn't escape. Over the next few days, it got worse. Fever came, then a cough, and soon even the simplest movements felt like climbing a mountain. My oldest daughter came by, took one look at me and said, "Dad, you don't look right." I told her I was fine, but deep down, I knew I wasn't. She insisted on driving me to the hospital. At the entrance, she was stopped. Restrictions were strict then, no family allowed inside. She called out, "Dad, I'll wait in the car. Call me when you're ready, I love you." I turned, smiled faintly and said, "I love you too. I'll see you soon." I didn't know those would be the last words I'd say to a family member for 6 weeks. The doors closed behind me and my world began to unravel. They admitted me quickly. Tests confirmed I had the virus that was sweeping across the globe. Within a day, my kidneys failed. My heart struggled, my liver swelled, my lungs collapsed under the weight of infection. Machines were connected, wires ran across my body, alarms beeped. Doctors did their best, but their faces carried the heaviness of doubt. I remember fragments: pain, fear, then silence. I was intubated and placed into a medically induced coma. For 31 days, I drifted between life and something else. What I didn't know at the time was that my family had been told to prepare for the worst. The doctors told my daughter, who was a nurse, that I would not survive. She refused to accept it. She fought for me, pushed for treatments that were still experimental, begged for plasma donors. Strangers stepped forward, offering blood and hope, and one young pastor became the match that kept me alive. While I lay in darkness, battles were fought on my behalf. But my story wasn't confined to machines and medicine. Something else happened while I was gone. My body was trapped in a hospital bed, but my consciousness, it went somewhere else. I didn't know what to call it then. A dream? A hallucination? All I knew was that it felt more real than anything I had ever experienced. It began in a tunnel, dark yet warm, like being carried through a womb of light. I had no body, only awareness, and I knew I had died. Strangely, I wasn't afraid. The tunnel held me in peace I had never known, a calm that felt endless, infinite. I remember telling myself, "So this is death," and I felt ready, almost relieved. At the end of the tunnel, a brilliance opened up, light so radiant it seemed alive. I stepped or floated into a golden chamber, vast and breathtaking, its ceilings stretched high, ribs of light etched with gold, chandeliers glowing with warmth. It felt holy, sacred, like stepping into the heart of love itself. Beside me, a presence appeared. I couldn't see a face at first, but I felt it, gentle, reassuring, familiar in a way that words failed to explain. I said aloud, "This room is beautiful." The being replied, "Yes, but you cannot stay." My heart sank. For the first time in that place, I felt sadness. I wanted to remain in the beauty, the love. But the figure pointed to great wooden doors, carved and glowing, and led me outside. Beyond the doors was a golden city, towers rising like sunlit glass, streets lined with shimmering parks. The colors were more vivid than any I'd ever seen, greens that pulsed with life, flowers that seemed to breathe. Children laughed in the distance. For a moment I thought I had found home. But then a wave of loneliness hit me. I realized I didn't know where I was or how to return. I sat on a step calling out, "Please help me, I'm lost." Crowds moved around me, but no one stopped. My joy turned into fear. Then I saw it, a staircase stretching into the sky, radiant and endless. I thought if I could reach it, someone would find me. I tried to move toward it, but before I could, a voice called my name. "There's Randy." I turned. A man with long white hair, a flowing robe, and eyes full of knowing stood before me. He lifted me from the steps as if I were a child. In that instant, the golden city vanished, and I was pulled back into darkness. My journey had only begun. When the golden city faded, I found myself on a dirt pathway, lined with flowers that glowed as though lit from within. Trees arched above me, their leaves whispering a melody I felt more than heard. To my right, a gentle river moved alongside the path, its waters clear and alive. I wasn't walking, not really, but drifting forward, carried by something unseen. My awareness was heightened, colors sharper, air richer, every detail filled with meaning. Suddenly, a boy appeared. He was small, perhaps 7 or 8, and full of urgency. His voice rang with excitement as he waved at me. "Follow me! Follow me!" he cried. I obeyed, feeling no hesitation. He led me into another chamber, bright and filled with warmth. The boy pointed toward a space near the river and said, "Wait here." Then he vanished, leaving me in silence. I turned toward the water, watching it snake into the distance, peaceful and endless. The calm was indescribable. For the first time in my existence, I felt at home. I thought to myself, I don't ever want to leave. My soul felt rooted, embraced by a love that required nothing of me. Then the boy returned, his face serious now. "I'm sorry," he said softly, "but you have to go. Your room isn't ready." My heart broke. "Please," I begged, "I feel safe here. I feel like this is where I belong." But his eyes were firm. "Not yet," he whispered, and then I was gone. The peace dissolved, replaced by emptiness. I awoke into a void, endless, silent, without form. There were no walls, no sky, no floor, only blackness stretching forever. Yet I wasn't alone. Orbs of light floated around me, glowing softly, moving with purpose. My guide returned, the same presence I had felt before. He didn't speak, but I knew I was meant to follow. Together, we drifted deeper into the void. Ahead, a small light flickered, distant but growing. As we drew closer, the light took form. Sitting within it was a woman, regal and still, her posture perfect. She looked young, late 20s, perhaps early 30s, but I recognized her instantly. My mother-in-law. Our relationship had never been close, but here she was, radiant. I cried out, "Dolores, it's me! It's Randy, I'm here!" She turned her face toward me, but then away, silent, refusing to acknowledge me. Desperate, I pleaded again, but my guide pressed forward. I watched as her light dimmed slowly until it disappeared completely into the void. Sadness filled me, but before I could sink into it, another light appeared in the distance, brighter, stronger, and as I neared it, I saw them. My father, my mother, and my sister. They stood together, shining with love. For a brief moment, I thought I could reach them. My heart swelled, longing to embrace them, to speak to them. But as I reached out, their light began to fade, slipping away like smoke in the wind. I whispered, "Don't go." But they were gone, leaving me with silence once more. Then, from the right, another orb raced toward me, faster than the rest. It stopped in front of me, and for the briefest second a face emerged. A man, thin, dark-haired, with eyes full of urgency. His words were clear. "Tell Madison at the salon her grandfather is okay." And then he was gone. I stood frozen, replaying the message. I didn't know any Madison, didn't know any salon. The request burned in me, strange and heavy. But I understood one thing. I had been given a task. The orb moved aside, showing me something more. A porch, painted white, familiar, yet foreign. On it, the man sat, crafting red, white, and blue ribbons, weaving them into small American flags. The image pulsed with meaning. I knew instantly he had been a veteran. Pride radiated from him, devotion carved into his spirit. My guide lingered, then told me it was time to leave. The vision dissolved, and I was pulled back into the blackness once more, stripped of light, left with only the echo of his message. When consciousness returned in the hospital, fragments of these journeys burned in my memory. At first I hesitated to share them. Were they dreams, hallucinations? But I knew the difference. I told my daughter, this wasn't a dream. I dreamt, yes. I hallucinated too. But this was something else. She looked at me, skeptical, worried I was confusing my coma with fantasy. But my words were firm. No, I was there. I traveled. And I began recounting everything: the tunnel, the city, the boy, the orbs, the messages. At home, recovering, the memories only grew sharper. When I spoke about the man, about Madison, my family asked who she was. I said honestly, I don't know. They pressed me. How will you find her? I shook my head. I don't know, but a veteran entrusted me with a message, and I have a duty to deliver it. I didn't realize how quickly that duty would find me, how a coincidence, or perhaps providence, was about to connect the pieces of a puzzle larger than I could have imagined. Not long after I returned home, I was rummaging through a drawer one morning. It was the kind of drawer that collects odds and ends, papers, old receipts, things forgotten. Buried inside was a business card for a local barber shop. My hair had grown unruly during the hospital stay, and I thought maybe it was time for a trim. I asked my daughter to call and check if they were open. A simple request, one I thought was nothing more than a chance to feel normal again. She came back into the room with wide eyes, holding the card like it was a revelation. "Dad," she said, "where did you get this? How long have you had it? Where did you find it?" I frowned, confused by her urgency. "What are you talking about? It's just a barber card. Make the appointment." She hesitated, then whispered, "Dad, I think we found your Madison." I took the card and stared at the name written clearly across it, Madison Logan. My heart skipped. The day of the appointment I felt nervous, not about the haircut, but about the message. When Madison appeared, she was young, smiling politely, unaware of what was coming. I sat in her chair, and my daughter explained briefly that I had been very sick. Madison nodded with kindness, then went about her work. Finally, I asked, "Madison, can I ask you something personal?" She agreed. "Are both of your grandfathers still alive?" She paused, then shook her head. "No, one passed less than a year ago." I swallowed hard. Was he a veteran? Her eyes lit with memory. "Yes. He served proudly, talked about Vietnam often." My chest tightened. I knew. "Madison," I said gently, "your grandfather came to me. He gave me a message. He said, 'Tell Madison at the salon her grandfather is okay.'" Tears filled her eyes instantly. She covered her mouth, stunned. My daughter was crying too. I felt my own throat burn as I repeated the words. For a moment, silence wrapped around us, broken only by the sound of her sobs. When we calmed, I asked, "Does a white porch mean anything to you?" She froze, then nodded, trembling. "That was his house back in Iowa. He loved sitting on the porch talking to neighbors. He spent hours there after he retired. It was his place." I nodded slowly, my conviction unshakable. "He showed me that porch. He wanted you to know." Her tears returned, flowing freely. She didn't have to say a word. I knew the image I'd seen was his truth. Then I shared the last detail. He was making red, white, and blue ribbons. He was crafting flags. "Does that mean something to you?" She stepped back, her eyes wide, her face pale. Every Veterans Day, our family went to the American Legion. We made ribbons and flags for the graves of veterans in his honor. Every year, that was his tradition. Her words hit me like a wave. Every piece of the vision had aligned. I hadn't imagined it. I hadn't dreamt it. I had delivered his message. Later, Madison called me. Her grandmother wanted to speak. I agreed, and when we talked, she asked me to retell everything. I shared the vision in detail, the orb, the porch, the flags, the message. She listened quietly, then said, "The man you saw, his name was John. He was my husband." She told me John had been a proud Army veteran, decorated for his service. He died suddenly of a heart attack at home, alone. Her voice cracked as she spoke. She admitted she carried guilt, pain that weighed heavily. Then she asked, "Did you see his face?" I told her yes, only briefly. Thin, dark hair, maybe a mustache. Strong features. Silence followed. Then she said, "I want to send you a picture." When I received it, my heart skipped. I called her back and said, "That's him. That's the man I saw." She wept. For her, the message brought relief. For me, it was confirmation. This was no accident, no hallucination. I had carried a gift across a boundary we barely understand. I realized then that the message wasn't for me. It was for them. My role had been that of a messenger, nothing more. A bridge between two worlds. John wanted his family to know he was at peace, that he was watching, that love continues even when the body fails. And in giving that message, something within me shifted. The old detective in me, the man who demanded evidence, had found it in the most unlikely way. My investigation had crossed into eternity. Even now I ask myself, why me? Why was I chosen to carry these words? I wasn't a saint. I wasn't even a man of deep faith. I had doubts, walls built from years of pain and loss. And yet, in my darkest hour, I had been given a glimpse of light, a responsibility, a chance to show others that death is not the end. Every time I think of Madison's tears, her grandmother's relief, I feel humbled. This wasn't my story alone, it was theirs too. After sharing John's message with Madison and her family, I couldn't shake the weight of what had happened. I'd been given evidence, not in the form of fingerprints or fibers, but in experiences too vivid to deny. For years, my life revolved around tangible proof. As a forensic investigator, I trusted only what I could measure, collect, and present in court. But now, the evidence was written in memory, emotion, and truth that defied the physical world. It was undeniable, yet invisible. I often replayed my journey in the hospital bed, the tunnels, the city, the staircase, the boy, the orbs. Each moment felt etched into my soul. They weren't fading like dreams usually do. Instead, they grew sharper over time. My daughters listened patiently, sometimes with tears, sometimes with disbelief. I told them, this wasn't imagination, this was real. The way my body healed so quickly after plasma, the way my mind returned with clarity, it all felt guided, as if unseen hands had carried me through. The doctors had called me a miracle. They said by all accounts, I should not have survived. Multiple organs failed, internal bleeding, my heart enlarged, lungs destroyed, yet I came back. And while medicine played its role, I knew in my heart it was more than that. There had been purpose in my journey, meaning in the message. My daughters agreed. Something beyond science had intervened, and I felt a deep calm, knowing that my survival wasn't random, it was intentional. Before the illness, my life had been driven by work, ambition, and a relentless pursuit of results. I was strict, intense, often harsh. My career demanded it. As a homicide investigator, lies were daily currency, and I needed to break through them. But in doing so, I became cold, detached. Family moments, birthdays, concerts, games were often pushed aside. I told myself duty came first. Yet lying in that hospital bed, drifting between worlds, none of those cases mattered anymore. What mattered was love. I thought about my father, who died when I was young, and how much of life we had missed together. I thought about my wife and children, how often I had been physically present, but emotionally absent. The near-death experience stripped everything away, leaving only the truth. Family and love are what endure. Work, achievements, titles, they fade. But the bonds we share with those around us, those are eternal. I vowed never to take them for granted again. When I recovered enough to walk outside, the world looked different. The sky seemed brighter, the grass more alive, every sound more meaningful. Even the smallest things, birds singing, a smile from a stranger, felt like gifts. I realized I had been given a second chance, not just to live, but to live differently, to listen more, to care more, to forgive. The old me would have brushed past people without noticing. Now I stopped, made eye contact, asked how they were, and truly cared about the answer. Conversations with my children became deeper. We spoke of life, death, heaven, and what it all meant. They asked me questions I never would have entertained before. "Dad, do you believe in God now?" I answered honestly, "Yes, because I met him in ways I can't explain." I told them about the peace, the love, the unmistakable presence. Not as a preacher, but as a man who had seen for himself. My words were different now. I no longer spoke from theory, but from experience. My wife noticed the change too. I was softer, more patient, less reactive. I smiled more. The sharp edges I carried for decades had been smoothed. She said one night, "You're different, Randy." I nodded. "I am. I don't sweat the small things anymore." She asked what I meant, and I told her, "Arguments, grudges, fears, none of it matters. Love is what matters. The rest fades away." She held my hand, and for the first time in years, I felt completely present with her. It amazed me how much healing extended beyond my body. Yes, my organs had recovered, but my spirit had too. The anger, the walls, the coldness, they were gone, replaced with a peace I had never known. And with that peace came clarity. I realized the experience hadn't been given to me for myself alone. It was meant to be shared, to bring comfort to those who doubt, who fear, who grieve. My story was a message, not about me, but about hope. Each time I told it, I saw how it touched people. Some cried, others nodded quietly, some simply said, "Thank you." I realized God had answered the question I asked in the void, "Why me?" The answer was simple. Why not me? I had been given the gift of evidence, the very thing I once demanded. And now, my purpose was to pass it on. To say to anyone who needed it, your loved ones are not gone. They are safe. They are waiting, and you will see them again. As time passed, I reflected more on why this happened to me. I wasn't a man of great faith before. I believed in evidence, in facts, in what I could see and touch. Church had meant little because nothing there offered proof I could hold in my hands. For years, I thought death was like a switch. Once flipped, everything ended. But now I knew better. Death wasn't an ending. It was a passage, a doorway into something greater than anything this world could offer. I remembered seeing my mother-in-law, my parents, my sister. Even though some turned away, their presence gave me peace. I knew then that love doesn't die with the body. It carries on, existing beyond time. And I realized they were watching even now, sharing in our lives in ways small and subtle. Sometimes it's a smile in a stranger, a familiar look in my grandchild's eyes, or a quiet feeling in a moment of stillness. Those glimpses remind me that the boundary between here and there is thinner than we think. My story spread beyond family. Friends, neighbors, strangers, they wanted to hear it. Some doubted, some believed, but almost all found comfort in it. I told them not to focus on the science of what I experienced, but on the love I felt. That's what matters. The love was endless, unconditional, unshakable. And if I, a skeptic hardened by years of chasing lies and evidence, could feel it, then anyone could. It wasn't a lesson for me alone. It was for everyone. I think back to the moment the doctors said I wouldn't make it. My daughter, refusing to give up, fought for me when I couldn't. That determination, that love, was part of what brought me back. I believe God worked through her, through strangers, through the young pastor who donated plasma. None of it was coincidence. It was part of a tapestry I couldn't see at the time. But now, looking back, it's clear. Love and faith wove together to give me life again. Even my work as a criminal investigator feels different in hindsight. For decades, I chased answers in crime scenes, searching for clues in blood, hair, fibers, prints. Now I see that life itself leaves traces too, but of a different kind. Traces of love, kindness, sacrifice. Those are the true fingerprints of our existence. And when I stand before people and tell them what I experienced, I realize I'm still an investigator. Only now, the case is life itself, and the evidence is everywhere. People often ask me what heaven looks like. I struggle to describe it. Words fail. How do you explain colors brighter than light, sounds that carry peace, or love that breathes like air? I tell them it's real, more real than anything we call real here. The golden chamber, the city, the parks, the boy, the orbs, those were glimpses. But what they all carried in common was love. A love so complete that you feel whole, free of fear, free of doubt. That is heaven. I live differently now. My days are quieter, slower, but fuller. I take time with my grandchildren, knowing these are moments I once missed. I tell my wife I love her, not just in passing, but with intention. I laugh more, listen more, and try not to hold on to anger. Life is too short for grudges. I see now that we are meant to come together, not push apart. We're meant to live in harmony, like 5 fingers forming one strong hand. Alone, we are weak. Together, we are powerful. The old me would never have said that. He would have dismissed it as sentimental, soft. But the man I became after my near-death experience knows better. I understand now that peace and love are not luxuries. They are necessities. They are what God wants us to carry, to practice, to live. The message I brought back wasn't for one family or one barber or even myself. It was for everyone willing to listen. Death is not the end. Love is eternal, and hope is real. Sometimes at night, when the house is quiet, I sit and think about why God chose me. I don't have an answer. Maybe it wasn't about deserving or earning. Maybe it was simply about willingness. He knew I needed evidence, and he gave it to me in a way I could never deny. My role now is to share it, to look someone grieving in the eye and say, they are safe. You will see them again. That's not theory. That's truth I lived. If there's one thing I hold close now, it's gratitude. Gratitude for my daughters, my wife, my grandchildren. Gratitude for the strangers who stepped in, the pastor who gave me life, the family who trusted me with a message. Gratitude for every sunrise, every chance to say I love you, every ordinary day that no longer feels ordinary. My life was given back to me, but not to waste. It was given so I could remind others. Life continues, love continues, and one day we will all be together again.